Okay, I think I got it.
No way, kid, really?
Yeah, try it now.
Well, I'll be damned, it works.
Rain hammered the tin roof so hard it sounded like gravel being thrown from the sky. Thunder rolled across the Arkansas hills. Lightning flashed beyond the open garage doors. And inside RoadDog Customs, frustration was reaching a breaking point. The motorcycle sat in the center of the garage like an unsolved mystery. A 1978 Harley-Davidson shovelhead. Black paint. Chrome pipes. Beautiful machine. Legendary machine. Broken machine. For nearly 3 weeks, nobody could make it run. Not the local mechanics. Not the motorcycle specialists from Little Rock. Not even Hank Callahan. And if anyone knew Harley engines, it was Hank. Most people knew him as Road Dog. The gray-bearded biker had spent nearly 50 years rebuilding motorcycles. He'd restored barn finds, rebuilt wrecks, resurrected engines everyone else considered scrap. But this Harley? This Harley refused to cooperate. The old biker stared at the exposed engine. Oil stains covered his hands. His patience was almost gone. So what are we missing? No one answered. 3 mechanics stood around the bike. Each looked equally exhausted. Toolboxes sat open. Engine parts covered every workbench. Repair manuals lay scattered across tables. Thousands of dollars. Hundreds of hours. Nothing worked. The Harley remained silent. One mechanic slammed a wrench onto the bench. I'm done. Another shook his head. It's the crank assembly. The third disagreed immediately. No way. The argument started again. Road Dog rubbed his temples. Same conversation. Different day. No answers. The rain intensified outside. Water streamed down garage windows. The atmosphere felt heavy. Defeated. Then the garage door opened. A blast of cold air entered. Everyone looked up. A young man stepped inside. Thin. Mud-covered boots. Worn hoodie. Grease stains on his jeans. Rainwater dripped from his sleeves. He couldn't have looked more out of place. Or less important. Nobody paid much attention. At first, the young man walked toward a stack of scrap metal near the back wall. Quietly. Without bothering anyone. Without interrupting. He simply began sorting through discarded parts. Road Dog noticed. Most people would have chased him out. The biker didn't. Something about the kid felt familiar. Not the face. The behavior. The way he moved. The way he studied things. The way his eyes constantly observed. Watching. Learning. Thinking. The old biker had seen that look before. Years ago. In Gifted Mechanics. One of the employees finally spoke. Malik. The young man glanced up. Yeah. What are you doing? Looking. The mechanic laughed. Looking for what? Malik shrugged. Not sure yet. The garage erupted into chuckles. Road Dog smiled slightly. The answer wasn't rude. Wasn't arrogant. Just honest. The kid returned to examining scrap metal. The conversation around the Harley continued. Arguments. Theories. Frustration. Yet every few minutes Malik glanced toward the engine. Watching. Listening. Studying. Like a puzzle. 2 hours passed. The rain continued. The Harley remained dead. Eventually one mechanic closed his toolbox. I'm done. The second nodded. So am I. The third followed. Road Dog looked at the bike. Then looked toward the storm. Then back toward the bike. 3 weeks. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. For the first time, the old biker considered giving up. The thought tasted awful. Yet it was there. Maybe this motorcycle simply wasn't worth saving. Then a voice interrupted. Quiet. Careful. Almost hesitant. Can I try something? The garage became silent. Everyone turned. Malik stood beside the scrap pile, holding an old metal bracket. Nobody spoke. The request sounded ridiculous. The mechanics exchanged looks. One actually laughed. Road Dog didn't. The old biker stared at the young man. You know engines? Malik shrugged. A little. The answer created more laughter. A little. The Harley had defeated professionals. Now some kid wanted a turn. The situation seemed absurd. Road Dog studied him carefully. The young man didn't look nervous. Didn't look cocky. Didn't look like he was showing off. He simply looked curious. Like someone who genuinely believed he saw something. The biker had learned an important lesson decades earlier. Never ignore curiosity. Especially mechanical curiosity. Because sometimes the person asking questions sees what everyone else missed. Road Dog stepped aside. The mechanics looked horrified. You serious? The biker nodded. Why not? The room fell silent again. Then Road Dog pointed toward the motorcycle. Show me. Malik approached slowly. Almost respectfully. The Harley seemed enormous beside him. The young man crouched. Studied the engine. Touched nothing. For nearly 5 minutes. Just watched. Looked. Thought. The garage remained silent. Nobody wanted to interrupt. Then Malik pointed. There. One mechanic frowned. There where? The young man tapped a small area near the timing assembly. The mechanic immediately shook his head. We checked that. Malik nodded. I know. The answer surprised everyone. RoadDog raised an eyebrow. How do you know? The young man pointed toward a workbench. 3 different replacement parts sat there, all connected to the same system. The realization hit immediately. He'd noticed. RoadDog smiled. Interesting. Very interesting. The old biker crossed his arms. Explain it. Malik swallowed. The attention made him uncomfortable. Not because he lacked confidence. Because he wasn't used to people listening. The young man pointed toward the engine, then toward the replacement parts, then back toward the timing assembly. The problem isn't there. One mechanic laughed. That's exactly where the problem is. Malik shook his head. No. The certainty caught everyone off guard. RoadDog leaned forward slightly. The kid wasn't guessing. That much was obvious. He genuinely believed what he was saying. Malik pointed deeper inside the engine. A vibration issue. Nobody spoke. The mechanics exchanged confused looks. The young man continued. When the engine gets hot. He tapped the housing. This shifts. One mechanic immediately objected. Impossible. Malik simply nodded. Maybe. The answer deflated the argument instantly. The kid wasn't trying to win. Wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong. He was simply explaining what he saw. RoadDog appreciated that. A lot. The young man walked toward the scrap pile. Started searching. Old brackets. Discarded steel. Broken components. Pieces everyone considered useless. The mechanics watched in disbelief. RoadDog watched with curiosity. Malik selected 3 pieces. Carried them to a workbench. Then began working. Grinding. Shaping. Measuring. Adjusting. The rain continued pounding outside. The garage fell silent except for tools. Nobody interrupted. Nobody laughed anymore. Because the kid clearly knew something. The question was what? 20 minutes later Malik returned. A small metal component rested in his hand. Ugly. Crude. Nothing impressive. Yet the young man looked satisfied. RoadDog examined it. What is it? A spacer. The biker blinked. A spacer? 3 weeks. Thousands of dollars. Professional mechanics. And the answer might be a homemade spacer? The idea sounded ridiculous. Yet something inside RoadDog hoped it was true. Malik installed the piece carefully. Slowly. Methodically. The confidence in his movements became impossible to ignore. He wasn't experimenting. He wasn't guessing. He was following a plan. The mechanics noticed too. One whispered. Where'd he learn this? Nobody knew. Not yet. The installation finished. The young man stepped back, wiped grease from his hands, then looked toward RoadDog. Try it. The garage froze. Everybody stared. RoadDog stared longest. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of failure. Now everything depended on a scrap metal part built by a kid during a rainstorm. The biker climbed onto the Harley. Turned the key. Silence. Every eye focused on the motorcycle. RoadDog pressed the starter. The Harley exploded to life. The engine roared. Deep. Powerful. Perfect. The entire garage froze. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The impossible had just happened. The motorcycle that defeated everyone suddenly sounded healthy. Strong. Alive. One mechanic actually dropped his wrench. Another stared open-mouthed. The third looked like he'd seen a ghost. RoadDog simply sat there listening. Because after 3 weeks, the sound felt almost unreal. The biker slowly shut off the engine. Silence returned. Nobody knew what to say. Eventually RoadDog climbed off the Harley. Walked directly toward Malik. The young man suddenly looked nervous. The old biker stopped in front of him. Then asked the question everyone was thinking. Who taught you? Malik looked away. The answer came quietly. No one. The garage became silent again. Because somehow that answer was even more shocking than the repair. The following afternoon RoadDog followed Malik home. Not because he didn't believe him. Because he did. And that bothered him. A lot. Nobody learns that level of engineering by accident. Nobody develops those instincts alone. Something didn't add up. The old biker intended to find out what. The drive took 20 minutes. Past Pine Ridge. Past old farms. Past gravel roads. Eventually they reached a small trailer sitting beside an overgrown field. The structure looked tired. Weathered. Old. Yet everything was clean. Maintained. Cared for. RoadDog immediately noticed. People who take care of little things usually possess character. The observation proved correct. An elderly woman greeted them at the door. Elsie Thomas. Malik's grandmother. Her smile carried warmth. Pride. Strength. The kind strength built through difficult years. RoadDog liked her immediately. The three talked for several minutes. Eventually, the conversation shifted toward engines, then tools, then motorcycles. Elsie's expression changed. Amusement. You should see the shed. The shed sat behind the trailer. Small, weathered, ordinary, at least from outside. RoadDog opened the door, then froze. Completely froze. The interior looked nothing like he expected. Workbenches, tools, engine parts, blueprints, mechanical sketches, projects, prototypes. Everything organized, everything precise, everything built by a young man everyone overlooked. The biker slowly walked through the room, speechless. Motorcycle engines sat partially rebuilt. Generators, transmission assemblies, homemade tools, engineering notebooks. RoadDog picked one up, opened it, then stopped breathing. The pages weren't notes. They were designs. Real designs. Complex designs. Advanced designs. Pages filled with calculations, measurements, solutions, ideas. The handwriting belonged to Malik. The understanding behind it shouldn't. The biker turned another page, then another, then another. Every page became more impressive. The young man stood quietly nearby, clearly uncomfortable with attention. RoadDog barely noticed. His focus remained on the notebooks, because he had spent 50 years around mechanics. And what he was looking at wasn't normal talent. This was something else, something rare. Then he found the blueprint. The page looked different, more detailed, more ambitious. RoadDog stared, then stared again. The design proposed a solution to an engine problem builders had struggled with for decades. The old biker felt chills, real chills, because the idea was brilliant. Not good, not impressive, brilliant. He slowly lowered the notebook, then looked toward Malik. The young man shifted awkwardly. What? RoadDog didn't answer immediately, because for the first time since meeting him, the biker realized exactly what he was looking at. Not a gifted kid, not a talented mechanic, something far rarer. A genuine inventor. And suddenly he understood. The broken Harley wasn't the story. It was only the beginning. RoadDog didn't sleep much that night. The blueprint sat on the table beside his bed. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again. The lines, the measurements, the solution. Most people would have missed its significance. The old biker didn't. 50 years around engines had taught him something important. A good mechanic repairs problems. A great mechanic prevents them. An inventor changes the entire system. And somehow a young man living in a trailer behind a gravel road had done exactly that. Morning arrived with clear skies. The storm had finally passed. RoadDog returned to the shed before breakfast. The blueprint remained spread across the workbench. Malik was already there, working. Of course he was. The young man seemed happiest when building something. RoadDog picked up the design. How long? Malik glanced up. What? How long have you been working on this? The young mechanic shrugged. About 2 years. The biker nearly laughed. 2 years. The kid had spent 2 years solving a problem major manufacturers ignored. The dedication alone impressed him. The solution itself was another matter entirely. RoadDog pointed toward a specific section. This actually works? Malik wiped grease from his hands. It should. The answer sounded careful, not uncertain, honest. The old biker appreciated that. Many talented people became arrogant. Malik hadn't. The young man remained grounded, focused, quiet. Exactly the kind of person who often got overlooked. 3 days later, they built a prototype. The entire garage participated. Even the mechanics who laughed at Malik earlier. Especially them. Because success has a way of changing opinions. The workshop buzzed with energy. Tools rattled. Machines hummed. Conversations flowed. Everyone wanted to see if the kid's idea worked. RoadDog wanted proof. Not because he doubted Malik. Because extraordinary claims deserved extraordinary testing. The prototype looked surprisingly simple. That impressed RoadDog even more. Complicated solutions were common. Elegant solutions were rare. The young mechanic had somehow found elegance. The modified component fit perfectly, like it belonged there, like it should have existed years ago. The old biker climbed onto the Harley. The garage fell silent. Exactly like the day Malik fixed the engine. The similarities weren't lost on anyone. RoadDog started the motorcycle. The engine fired immediately. Smooth, clean, powerful. Then they pushed it harder. Much harder. Higher RPMs. Longer testing. More stress. Conditions that normally exposed weaknesses. Nothing happened. The engine remained stable. Perfectly stable. One mechanic stared at the diagnostic readings. Then looked again. Then a third time. That can't be right. RoadDog smiled. It was right. Word spread quickly, faster than anyone expected. Motorcycle communities aren't large, and innovative solutions travel fast, especially when respected builders start talking. Within days, people began calling. Custom shops, restoration experts, collectors, performance builders. Everyone wanted details. Everyone wanted information. Everyone wanted to know who created the design. The answer shocked them every time. A young mechanic from Pine Ridge. Self-taught. Unknown. Until now. The local newspaper arrived first. Then a motorcycle magazine. Then a regional television station. Suddenly cameras appeared inside the garage. Microphones. Interviews. Questions. The attention made Malik uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. The young man preferred engines. Machines made sense. People didn't always. RoadDog noticed. And quietly stayed nearby during every interview. Not controlling. Protecting. Mentoring. The same way someone once protected him. One evening a television segment aired. Only 3 minutes long. Yet it changed everything. Viewers watched footage of Malik working. Building. Explaining. Creating. The story spread beyond Pine Ridge. Beyond Arkansas. Beyond the local motorcycle community. Thousands watched. Then tens of thousands. Among them sat a man named Vince Mercer. Vince watched the segment twice. Then a third time. The wealthy entrepreneur leaned back in his leather office chair. Interesting. Very interesting. His company specialized in custom motorcycle performance parts. Innovation created profits. New ideas created wealth. And the young man on television had just demonstrated something valuable. Very valuable. Vince smiled. Not because he admired talent. Because he recognized opportunity. An opportunity, properly controlled, became money. A lot of money. Back in Pine Ridge, nobody knew any of that. The garage celebrated. The prototype continued exceeding expectations. Customers arrived. Orders increased. Excitement grew. For the first time in years, RoadDog felt genuinely optimistic. Then the phone rang. The old biker answered casually. By the end of the conversation, his expression had changed completely. Malik noticed immediately. What? RoadDog slowly lowered the phone. A strange smile crossed his face. Half amusement. Half concern. Looks like you've got someone's attention. Who? The biker looked toward the highway. Toward possibilities. Toward problems. Then answered. Someone with a lot of money. Vince Mercer arrived 2 days later. Exactly the way wealthy people often arrive. In a vehicle worth more than most homes. Perfect clothes. Perfect smile. Perfect timing. The black SUV rolled into the gravel lot shortly after lunch. Everyone noticed. Including RoadDog. The old biker didn't like perfect smiles. Experience taught him they usually hid something. Vince stepped out. Confident. Polished. Charismatic. The kind of man who immediately made people comfortable. Or tried to. He shook hands. Introduced himself. Complimented the garage. Praised the prototype. Praised Malik. Praised everyone. The performance would have been impressive if it felt genuine. RoadDog noticed something else. Vince spent very little time talking about people. And a lot of time talking about ownership. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours. By the end, Vince presented an offer. A generous offer. At least on paper. Funding. Resources. Manufacturing. Marketing. Patents. Everything needed to bring Malik's design to the world. The proposal sounded incredible. Life-changing. Almost too good to refuse. Which immediately worried RoadDog. Because the best traps often look like opportunities. Malik sat quietly. Listening. Thinking. The young mechanic clearly saw possibilities. How could he not? The offer promised security. Stability. A future. Things he'd never had. RoadDog understood that. The biker understood poverty too. He knew exactly how tempting opportunity could become, especially when it arrived wearing a suit. After Vince left, the garage remained quiet. Everyone processed the meeting differently. Some saw success. Some saw money. Some saw dreams becoming reality. RoadDog saw questions. Lots of questions. The old biker couldn't explain why. Not yet. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. That night he started digging. Old-fashioned digging. Phone calls. Conversations. Questions. Friends. People he'd known for decades. People who knew things. People who remembered things. The biker wasn't searching for evidence. Just instincts. Confirmation. Anything. By midnight he had his answer. And he didn't like it. Vince Mercer had a history. Not criminal. Not technically. Something worse. A pattern. Inventors complained. Designers disappeared. Small creators lost credit. Ideas changed ownership. Patents shifted hands. Nothing illegal ever surfaced. Yet the same stories appeared repeatedly. Too many stories. RoadDog trusted patterns. And this pattern smelled terrible. The next morning, he confronted Malik. Carefully. Respectfully. The young mechanic listened. Didn't argue. Didn't dismiss concerns. Which impressed RoadDog. Because young people often mistake caution for negativity. Malik didn't. He simply nodded. Then asked questions. Smart questions. Questions about contracts. Ownership. Protection. The conversation lasted hours. And by the end, RoadDog felt proud. Because the young man wasn't blinded by opportunity. He was thinking. Really thinking. 3 days later, disaster struck. The shed was broken into. Nothing major appeared missing at first. No tools. No engines. No equipment. Then Malik checked the cabinet. And froze. The blueprint folders were gone. Every one. Months. Years. Of work. Gone. The silence that followed felt suffocating. RoadDog arrived 20 minutes later. One look told him everything. The old biker walked through the shed carefully. Examining. Observing. Thinking. Then he noticed something. A single page left behind. Accidentally. Carelessly. Or intentionally. The biker wasn't sure. But it contained enough information to confirm his fears. Someone hadn't come for tools. They came for ideas. And suddenly Vince Mercer's visit looked very different. The investigation started immediately. RoadDog wasn't a detective. Never claimed to be. But he understood people. And he understood motive. The blueprint theft made one thing obvious. Someone was scared. Scared enough to steal. Scared enough to risk exposure. Scared enough to act. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A retired motorcycle designer living in Missouri. One of RoadDog's old friends. The man drove 5 hours after hearing the story. Then spent 20 minutes examining the remaining documents. His expression darkened immediately. I've seen this before. The room became silent. RoadDog folded his arms. Explain. The older designer sighed. Then told a story nobody liked hearing. Years earlier, he'd developed a suspension improvement. Innovative. Useful. Profitable. Then Vince Mercer appeared. Partnership offers. Promises. Contracts. Support. The same script. The same charm. The same smile. Within a year, the inventor owned nothing. The company owned everything. Legally. Technically. Perfectly. The pattern repeated again. And again. And again. RoadDog listened carefully. Each detail strengthened the picture. Soon more stories emerged. Small inventors. Independent builders. Mechanics. Designers. Talented people with limited resources. Many shared similar experiences. The names changed. The outcomes didn't. Vince built success using other people's brilliance. And somehow always walked away clean. Until now. Malik listened quietly. The realization hurt. Not because of lost money. Because of trust. The young mechanic genuinely wanted to believe opportunities were real. Now he understood something important. Not everyone offering help intends to help. Some people simply recognize value and try to take it. Then another breakthrough arrived. Security footage. Not from the shed. From a gas station. The camera captured a vehicle. Not enough for proof. Enough for suspicion. Enough to raise questions. Enough to attract attention. And attention was exactly what Vince didn't want. RoadDog stood outside the garage at sunset. Thinking. Watching. Planning. The mountains glowed orange beneath the evening sky. Malik joined him. Neither spoke immediately. Eventually, the young mechanic broke the silence. What happens now? The old biker smiled. A slow smile. The kind people recognized. The kind that usually meant something important was coming. RoadDog pulled out his phone. Scrolled through contacts. Stopped on a name. Big Sam Rodriguez. Regional chapter leader. Old friend. Loyal ally. The biker pressed call. The line connected. Sam. RoadDog. The old biker looked toward the horizon. Then spoke 5 simple words. We've got a problem. The silence that followed lasted only 2 seconds. Then Sam answered. How many riders do you need? And somewhere across multiple states, motorcycles were about to start moving. The first motorcycles appeared just after sunrise. Most people in Pine Ridge didn't notice. At first, a pair of Harleys rolled quietly into town and parked outside the diner on Main Street. 2 riders. Coffee. Breakfast. Nothing unusual. Then 4 more arrived. Then 6. Then 10. By noon, people started paying attention. By evening, everyone was talking. Because motorcycles were appearing from every direction. RoadDog watched from the garage entrance. The old biker leaned against a tool chest while riders pulled into the lot one after another. Some he knew. Some he hadn't seen in years. A few he hadn't expected to ever see again. Gray-haired veterans, retired builders, club leaders, mechanics, road captains, men and women from across multiple states. Nobody needed explanations. They already knew enough. A talented young inventor needed protection. That was sufficient. Malik couldn't understand it. The young mechanic stood near the workbench staring out the garage doors. Motorcycles kept arriving, and arriving, and arriving. Every time he thought it was over, another group appeared. The sight felt impossible, especially for someone who spent most of his life unnoticed. Most people ignored him. Now hundreds of strangers were driving across state lines because somebody had wronged him. The concept felt overwhelming. That evening, Big Sam Rodriguez arrived. The regional chapter leader stepped off his motorcycle and immediately crossed the garage. Massive build, silver beard, weathered face. The kind of presence that filled a room without effort. RoadDog smiled. About time. Sam laughed. You sound surprised. The old biker pointed toward the growing crowd. I wasn't expecting half of these people. Sam looked around, then grinned. Neither was I. The following morning, local news stations arrived. Then regional media. Then motorcycle magazines. The story had escaped Pine Ridge. People were fascinated. Not because of conflict. Because of possibility. The image captured attention immediately. A gifted young mechanic. A homemade invention. A struggling family. A powerful businessman. And now a growing movement of support. The ingredients felt irresistible. Meanwhile, Vince Mercer was becoming increasingly uncomfortable. Every news report made things worse. Every article raised new questions. Every arriving motorcycle increased public attention. And attention was the last thing he wanted. Especially now. Because investigators had started asking questions. Not accusations. Questions. Questions about contracts. Questions about patents. Questions about business practices. Questions that made wealthy people nervous. Back in Pine Ridge, support continued growing. Local businesses donated supplies. Machine shops offered equipment. Retired engineers volunteered time. Even the high school vocational program reached out. The town had never rallied around anyone like this before. Certainly not a kid from a trailer. Yet something about Malik inspired people. Maybe because his success wasn't built on luck. It was built on effort. Years of effort. 3 days later, the county fairgrounds opened its gates. Nobody officially called it a rally. Yet that's exactly what it became. Rows of motorcycles stretched across open fields. Chrome glimmered beneath Arkansas sunshine. Food vendors appeared. Families arrived. Veterans gathered. Children explored motorcycles. The atmosphere felt less like a protest and more like a celebration. A celebration of possibility. By sunset, the count passed 300 riders. Exactly 300. People came from Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Louisiana, and beyond. The sight stunned everyone, especially Malik. The young mechanic stood beside RoadDog watching endless rows of motorcycles fill the fairgrounds. His voice barely rose above a whisper. Why are they doing this? The old biker looked across the crowd, then answered honestly. Because somebody helped me once. Malik frowned. RoadDog smiled. And somebody helped them. The young mechanic slowly understood. This wasn't about motorcycles. It never was. It was about people. Saturday morning arrived beneath bright blue skies. The fairgrounds looked unbelievable. 300 motorcycles. Hundreds of riders. Thousands of visitors. Local news helicopters circled overhead. Food trucks lined the entrances. Families filled the walkways. The entire event felt larger than anyone expected. Especially Malik. The young mechanic spent most of the morning answering questions. Builders wanted to see the prototype. Engineers wanted details. Students wanted advice. Veterans wanted photographs. Every conversation seemed surreal. Just weeks earlier, he worked alone inside a small shed. Now people treated him like an innovator. The transition felt impossible. RoadDog stayed close. Not because Malik needed protection, because he needed perspective. The old biker understood fame. Even small amounts. Attention could become dangerous, especially for someone young. The mentor quietly reminded him of the important things. Stay humble. Stay curious. Keep learning. Never stop building. The advice mattered. More than RoadDog realized. Around noon, Big Sam stepped onto the main stage. The crowd gathered quickly. Conversations faded. Motorcycles quieted. The chapter leader looked across the audience, then smiled. We came here to support talent. Applause erupted. Sam waited, then continued. We came here to support integrity. More applause. The crowd understood exactly who he meant. Then came the surprise. A large banner dropped behind the stage. The words stretched across it in giant letters. The Malik Thomas Innovation Fund. The audience erupted. Malik froze. Completely froze. He hadn't known. Nobody told him. Not even RoadDog. The young mechanic stared at the banner in disbelief. The crowd stood cheering. The sound rolled across the fairgrounds like thunder. Big Sam raised his hand. The crowd gradually quieted. Then he made the announcement. 300 riders had contributed. Businesses contributed. Private donors contributed. Motorcycle builders contributed. The fund would support education, equipment, patents, research, future projects, everything needed to protect Malik's ideas. The young mechanic couldn't speak. For perhaps the first time in his life, he felt truly supported. Then another surprise arrived. A major motorcycle manufacturer announced a scholarship. A technical institute offered advanced engineering training. Several companies offered apprenticeships. The opportunities kept coming, one after another. The crowd loved it, but nobody loved it more than Elsie Thomas. Malik's grandmother sat near the front row. Tears filled her eyes. For years, she'd watched her grandson work late into the night. Building, studying, learning, sacrificing. Now the world finally saw what she saw. The moment overwhelmed her. RoadDog noticed. The old biker quietly walked over, then sat beside her. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. Some moments say enough on their own. Late that afternoon, Big Sam approached the microphone again, then looked directly toward Malik. The crowd immediately sensed something important. There's one thing left. The fairgrounds became silent. Sam smiled. Come up here. Malik hesitated. 300 riders started applauding. The young mechanic slowly walked toward the stage, unaware that the most important moment of the entire day was still ahead. Malik hated public speaking. Absolutely hated it. Engines made sense. Machines made sense. Crowds did not. Yet somehow he found himself standing in front of thousands of people, microphone in hand, legs slightly shaking, heart racing. The crowd waited patiently. No pressure, no judgment, just encouragement. For several seconds he couldn't think of anything to say. Then his eyes found his grandmother. Everything changed, because suddenly the speech wasn't about motorcycles, or inventions, or fame. It was about her. The young mechanic smiled, then began. My grandmother bought my first toolbox. The crowd instantly relaxed. The honesty felt real. The vulnerability felt real. Everything felt real. Malik continued. She couldn't afford it. A few people laughed softly. Others nodded. Many understood exactly what he meant. The young mechanic described growing up. The trailer. The scrap piles. The long nights. The broken engines. The failures. The learning process. Nothing dramatic. Nothing exaggerated. Just truth. And somehow truth proved powerful. The audience listened carefully, because everyone recognized authenticity. Then Malik pointed toward Elsie. Everything I know started because she believed in me. The camera screens immediately showed his grandmother. The crowd erupted into applause. Elsie covered her face, completely overwhelmed. The standing ovation lasted nearly a minute. RoadDog smiled. Some recognition arrives late, but it still matters. Malik continued speaking. Not about success. About effort. About patience. About persistence. The young mechanic explained that talent wasn't enough. Curiosity mattered. Discipline mattered. Hard work mattered. The audience hung on every word, especially younger listeners, because the message felt achievable, real, human. When the speech ended, thousands stood, applauding, cheering, celebrating, not because Malik invented something, because he represented something. Hope, possibility, opportunity, proof that greatness can come from unexpected places. The ovation seemed endless. The young mechanic stood quietly, trying to process it all. Then RoadDog stepped onto the stage, smiling, and carrying a small wooden box. The wooden box looked ordinary, simple, weathered, nothing special. Yet RoadDog handled it carefully, like something valuable. The crowd immediately became curious. Malik looked confused. The old biker enjoyed that, just a little. RoadDog opened the box. Inside sat a set of keys and a folder. The young mechanic stared. What is that? The old biker smiled, then pointed across the fairgrounds. Everyone turned. A large building stood near the entrance. Fresh paint, new signs, new equipment visible through windows. The crowd erupted immediately, because they already knew. The sign above the entrance read, Thomas Innovation Works. The applause became deafening. Malik stood frozen, completely stunned. The building wasn't a gift. Not exactly. It was something better. A partnership. A future. A place where ideas could grow. A place where young people could learn. A place where talent wouldn't be overlooked. RoadDog handed him the keys. Then the folder. Inside sat ownership documents. Not symbolic ownership. Real ownership. The workshop belonged to Malik. The crowd exploded again. The young mechanic struggled to speak. For the second time that day, words simply failed. The following months transformed Pine Ridge. Students arrived. Apprenticeships launched. Training programs expanded. Veterans volunteered. Retired mechanics taught classes. The workshop became more than a business. It became a community. Exactly what RoadDog hoped it would become. 1 year later, summer sunlight reflected across Lake Hamilton. Hundreds of motorcycles gathered along the shoreline. The annual memorial ride had become a tradition. Families attended. Students attended. Builders attended. The atmosphere felt peaceful, proud, hopeful. Malik stood outside the workshop, overlooking the crowd. The building buzzed with activity. Young apprentices worked inside. Projects filled every workbench. Ideas covered whiteboards. Dreams became plans. Plans became reality. The transformation felt extraordinary. RoadDog joined him. The old biker looked older now, but happier, much happier. He watched students moving through the workshop, then smiled. You built something good. Malik shook his head. No. The young mechanic looked toward the crowd, toward his grandmother, toward the riders, toward the apprentices, toward the future. We built it. RoadDog laughed. The answer was perfect, because it was true. The boy who once searched scrap piles for parts now helped others discover possibilities. The invention changed his life, but the people changed his future. And as hundreds of motorcycles rolled past the lake beneath the Arkansas sunset, everyone present understood something important. The greatest thing Malik Thomas ever built wasn't an engine. It was opportunity.